evening. It has been a busy news day, and this is where you get the last word. Thank you so much for joining us today. Our focus is on the Judges and Magistrates Vetting Board. Earlier today, they submitted their final report to President Uhuru Kenyatta, and we'll interrogate the same. We have one of the commissioners with us, so do stay with us for that. We'll also be looking at some of the recommendations shortly. And in our question, we're asking you on KTN News, do you think the Judges and Magistrates Vetting Board has restored your confidence in the judiciary? Has the Judges and Magistrates Vetting Board restored your confidence in the judiciary as it was set out to clean up and ensure that only those that are of high integrity are able to continue serving, at least those who were serving as at 2010, the promulgation of the Constitution, because those were the only ones that went through that particular vetting exercise? So talk to us at KTN News, at Sophia Wanuna. I'd love to hear from you tonight. I'll introduce my guest to you shortly, but let's begin with a recap of our top stories today. And we begin right here in Nairobi, Kenya, with the revelations of the Sports Cabinet Secretary and the embattled National Olympic Committee. Two sides have spent the day blaming each other for the problems the Kenyan team faced during the Rio Olympics. The National Olympic Committee members said they were hounded and detained for nothing over the kits and the accommodation issues at the team, yet they did everything by the book. The NOC officials hinted that the kits found in their offices after they were arrested were not necessarily those that were meant for the Kenyan athletes that went to Brazil.
I know is one of the accommodation that was not used kabisa was a cruise ship. It was never used. Whereas we are paid $605 for 18 days per room times 2 rooms. The kit was specifically addressed to the Secretary General, Mr. Francis Paul, who was receiving this kit, who handed over to the General Team Manager for distribution in various locations.
But the issues sound very similar to the issues that occurred now. Issues around the chief division was the same chief division, issues about accreditation, apparently it was even worse in London, issues of accreditation, and so on and so forth. Probably even allowances could have been worse at that.
Now, anxiety and confusion continue over the much-anticipated Jubilee merger set for this Saturday. Disgruntled members from 3 affiliate political parties are heading to court to stop it. Delegates from PNU, New Ford Kenya and Ford People are expected in court tomorrow to seek an injunction on the party's National Delegates Congress on grounds that they have been shortchanged by their colleagues in URP and TNA in the sharing of top party positions.
You can't tell us ati mgawane viti zote za juu. Sasa party leader wetu akikuja huko aenda akue. How can he? Our party leader cannot go in a position like a youth leader or a deputy chairman.
If we get a fair hearing and we get a positive response on the 7th, we shall hold the NDC on the 8th.
We expect that the NDC will be allowed to proceed as scheduled on the 8th. There is politics playing.
Retired High Court Judge Aaron Ringera, who oversaw the infamous radical surgery in the judiciary in 2003, has today said he does not regret the purge that saw his fellow judges sent home. Ringera, who was being interviewed for the Chief Justice job, however, says he regrets that the names of the affected judges were made public before their side of the story was ever heard.
Our job was information gathering, evaluation. It was a three judicial minds actually evaluated these things. It was not a one-man show.
But you used the word they were infected with corruption virus. Was that necessary?
I apologize for strong language and inappropriate language. Yes.
Do you still say that this was your high noon, the implementation?
I feel no remorse whatsoever except the adverse publication of names. I feel no remorse whatsoever. All of them who wanted to be heard were heard.
You did not deem it, my lord, just or fit before you compiled the report to give an opportunity to your colleagues.
I've confessed that if I were to do the job today, I'll do it completely differently in the new legal and constitutional environment.
Now, 4 fishermen from Tanzania died after drowning during a fishing escapade on Monday night at Gazi Bay area in Kwale County. The 4 were among the 16 foreigners who usually fish in the deep sea of the Kenyan waters. According to Omar Haki, a survivor who lost 2 relatives, the waves were massive, thereby making it impossible to navigate the waters. The survivors were forced to swim in the darkness for almost an hour towards offshore, according to Haki. Haki lost his uncle and a nephew.
Jana ikawa kumeingia giza, tungeweza fanya chochote. Asubuhi tukamobilize local fishermen wote tukaingiza kwa bahari kutafuta, na so far watatu tumefanikiwa kuwapata, bado mmoja.
All right, now the Sharad Rao-led Judges and Magistrates Vetting Board that was set up in 2011 has concluded its mandate, and today they submitted their final report to President Uhuru Kenyatta. We'll be looking at the same just a short while, but I want to take you through some of the recommendations in that report. So one of the things the body is saying that they want there to be established an independent disciplinary tribunal, and this is in essence to continue with the work that they've been doing, so there is no gap going forward, that in terms of ensuring complaints are forwarded and that the same are investigated and suitability or lack of it is checked, is done by this disciplinary tribunal. So Parliament to be able to enact a law that allows for the same. Fixed term contracts for judges and magistrates. This is to allow for independence, saying that that is good practice to ensure that there isn't interference with those who would have power to get them sacked coming in to do the same or interfering with their work. Setting up for an inspectorate for monitoring codes is also an important recommendation they have made to ensure that everything is working in accordance to the judicial reforms that, again, have been broadly discussed in that particular report. Comprehensive reform of the whole legal system. So issues that have emerged have been highlighted, some of which we will discuss tonight, so do stay with us for that. Electronic filing and court recording systems, so technology, even from the CJ interviews that have been ongoing, is one of the key issues that even as the world and Kenya advances, important to ensure that by a click of a button, a lot of this information can be accessed. Then, of course, there's public sensitization on court processes. This is one of the key concerns that the board had, that many people, many Kenyans do not have a clue about the processes and as far as the courts are concerned. And of course, that is a failure when it comes to sensitization and educating the public on the same. Recommendations also, we have upscaling the Judicial Training Institute to ensure that all the judicial officers are well trained, and that is continuous as well, not a one-off, but also expansion of the court systems for effective access to the justice. The report highlights some of the worrying scenarios in Turkana, there being one court in such an expansive and vast area. Remember, it's the biggest, largest county in the country. And so for some, it's hours of travel before they're able to access a court. So more courts, of course, are needed in the country. Mentorship program for junior judicial officers, so those that have come before them can be able to impart some of that knowledge, because surely one cannot live through all of life's mistakes to be able to learn. You need to be able to learn from those that have gone before us. Improved communication within judiciary, also one of the recommendations. So that's a total of 10. Of course, there are many more that we're going to be discussing shortly as I introduced our guests to you. But also, we want to hear from you tonight. We are asking you in our Twitter poll question whether you think that Judges and Magistrates Vetting Board has allowed for your confidence to be restored in the judiciary. Has the vetting and the vetting board, that's of the judges and magistrates, allowed for your confidence to be restored in the judiciary? Because that was key on their agenda. In fact, that was the should I say, a theme which is restoring confidence in the judiciary. So tweet us at KTN News and at Sophia Wanuna. Has their work over the last 4 or 5 years, it has been restored your confidence in the judiciary. Joining us in studio on my extreme left is Justice Muyidhia. He's a commissioner with the Judges and Magistrates Vetting Board. We'll get to get some insights from within and some of what they've been able to go through in the last couple of years. And also with us is Dunstan Omari, who's an advocate of the High Court. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. So this is the report. It's quite heavy. And I got a chance to look at, read through quite some of what you have in here. So from where you sit, why are you successful? I'll pose the question we're asking our viewers to you first. In restoring confidence in the judiciary, do you think?
Thank you very much, and good evening, viewers. Let me say from the outset that what we have done as a vetting board is a Kenyan brand, made in Kenya and brewed in Kenya. It has never happened in the world. It has never happened in the country whereby a process starts from the scratch to audit and make judges and magistrates accountable and submit a final report without hitches. When you look at the history...
Without hitches?
Without hitches. When you look at the history of the judiciary in Kenya and the attributes that the retired Chief Justice Mutunga said, that when he came in, he found the judiciary in ICU. And when you look at the history of the establishment of the vetting process, it was that there were 3 ways. One, all the judges who were serving before the effective date, Kenyans wanted them to go home. Or there are those who are the view that you don't send them home. Or the other view was you look for an hybrid system whereby you look at those who are good and those who are bad.
All right.
Now, looking at Kenya today and where the judiciary is, one would say that the vetting process has helped to restore confidence in the judiciary.
So you take full credit for the confidence that has been restored as a board. You say you've done.
To some extent. Let me demonstrate.
Okay, briefly, please.
Look at the election petitions that were filed. In the 2007 dispute, if you remember where Kenya was, one of the losers said they can't go to court. In 2013, they opted to take their dispute to court. When you look at how those disputes were handled, they were finalized within time that, unlike the other days when they would take forever. 3, look at tomorrow. The Jubilee merger
was that within the mandate of the vetting board? Because understanding is your vetting. So are you saying you're able to vet and these matters were had in 2013? Because in 2013 you were still trying to put your house in order, weren't you?
We were already in the process of vetting, and we had vetted all the judges of the High Court and Court of Appeal, where most of these petitions normally go. And political competition in Kenya needs to be arbitrated in a manner that we don't go back to violence. And that's what was done.
All right. So you're saying all the judges you vetted are good for this country and to be in the judicial system?
I would not say that all the judges that we vetted, if you look at our report, are 100% good, because human beings do err. You may find that some of them were found good, but they have retrogressed. They have gone back to the holy ways.
All right. Your thoughts on this? Do you think that the vetting board has managed and succeeded in restoring confidence?
First and foremost, Sophia, my brother here, they vetted a very small percentage of judges and magistrates.
Just a third?
A third. The majority of the judiciary has just joined after. There was a determination in the High Court that said that their mandate should only be limited to those who are serving as per the time the Constitution was promulgated. So a huge chunk of judges and magistrates were kept out. 2, when you look at the vetting board, they've done a tremendous job under very strenuous and very complicated situations. One, they didn't have resources, they didn't have anywhere to benchmark. It was a new thing that was being tested. And Wanjiku had spoken that they wanted the judges and magistrates to be vetted. My problem with the vetting board is, one, do Kenyans believe they've done a good job? They've done a very good job at the magistrates level. Kenyans look at the judiciary from the angle of the Supreme Court. Do Kenyans have that confidence with the Supreme Court? Those allegations of the Tunui scandal that was there really shattered the image that the judiciary, my brother here, had created.
Right.
2, when you also see the Rawal and petition fighting that the age of retirement is 74, that really put Kenyans to ask, if a deputy CJ can interpret the law to mean 74, really, did our brothers get the mandate, but they didn't vet that group of judges and magistrates? In my own view is that the report is fantastic. They've done a tremendous job. The recommendations they've come up about of having an independent tribunal will be resisted very vehemently from the judicial officers.
Yeah.
I don't think they are going to get a good word after they have recommended that vetting will continue and be continuous. We also resisted as Law Society of Kenya when the tribunal was set. We put up a lot of fight, but the end result, that tribunal is there. I'll tell the judicial officers that whatever they do, the tribunal is there to stay, and it's only a time for implementation.
Yeah. So briefly talk to us, because set up in 2011, this is not the time you were supposed to be completing your mandate. Why has it taken so long?
Thank you very much. That's a good question. One, when you look at the law that was established by Parliament, they did not have a basis on giving us 1 year within which to vet 351 judicial officers. Why do I say so? Because in this world, nothing had ever been set up. So they just said, a law is passed that you must vet judges of the Court of Appeal within 3 months, judges of the High Court and magistrate within 6 months. And in it, they were tenets of natural justice, whereby if a complaint is raised, you must give somebody 14 days within which to respond. The person must cross-examine the witness. And therefore, when you do, or you look at our report on the workload analysis, it was not possible to do that work. And therefore, we had to engage Parliament from time to time, because there was a provision that Parliament had the residual power to extend the time within which we could be able to finish our report. And that's why you'll see that every 1 year or so, we will always go back to Parliament to ask them, with a basis that we still have this workload finalized, it must be finished within the constitutional framework, and that's why we ended up finalizing in July this year.
So whilst on one hand you feel you have done a great job, but one of the things you say in this report is that you felt as a board that there was a harsh and severe mandate that was given upon you as far as the powers to either find suitable or unsuitable, that there was no middle ground. So would you say then, with no middle ground, that you were unfair to some judges because you were stuck between either suitable or unsuitable? There wasn't room to be able perhaps to recommend certain measures as opposed as harsh as unsuitable or as lenient as suitable?
Thank you, Madam. One, I may need to, just before I could answer that, bring out another challenge we raised. The other challenge that we faced was the cases against the vetting board in court. And I have a chapter on that, whereby, although the Constitution was very clear that the vetting board should never be challenged, judges and magistrate association went to court and got injunctions against us, and that took a lot of time. Now, you are asking whether we were fair or harsh to some judges. Let me say this. The wording of the statute never gave us discretion insofar as whether you could caution or you could have a warning. It only said you find somebody suitable or unsuitable based on the factors that have been given to us. But the vetting board became very innovative, whereby you find that there are certain judges and magistrates whom we found there are serious problems, but again they also had a good side, in which case we made far-reaching recommendations insofar as their future career is concerned, and we passed them with a caveat. That's why you'll find that between 6 and 4%, or you find 4 to 4, suitable or unsuitable, to the extent that the Judicial Service Commission was added a confidential report to keep those people on a watchland so that they don't reach grace period.
All right, because another thing your report says is in total 26 cases were filed against the board, lost on questioning of constitutionality. Those who questioned whether you're constitutional lost those cases, but some decisions were reviewed. And let me bring you on this, Dunstan, because on one hand, going back to that point of whether that mandate was too severe as to just either find suitable or unsuitable, then there were other issues that could have perhaps caused a judge said to be absent. But you were not in your mandate allowed to consider that, and hence that is why when some of these matters moved to court, they were overturned because for some judges they were sickly, and that's why perhaps there were delays or this and the other was happening. So do you feel then, some of these factors you've been able to read and pick out from this report, that these are some of the handicaps and challenges that really could have hampered some of their work?
What goes to the core of the vetting board is a question of the operating tool, the law. It didn't give them any leeway. The sentences was either suitable or unsuitable. But the question to determine whether a judge or a magistrate is suitable was based on the chair of the vetting board. The vetting board chair had very many issues. One, you look at the chair, Sharad Rao, in his practice as a DPP. You look at the gusto and the passion and the tenacity to convict. Did he carry the same to the vetting board? Definitely, most of the judges and magistrates will tell you that they had reservations. There was no difference between the chair of the vetting board and the Justice Rengera Commission, according to the judicial officers who appeared before the vetting board. That could not have come out very clearly. We could have, as advocates, expected some sobriety in terms of the chair. So much of the reviewing that was done, without our knowledge and without hindsight, people tend to believe that the chair must bear against the commissioners to remove those people. And that is why the 26 cases went to the courts, because it more or looked that the first time the vetting board started, the game was exit, not suitable. Midway, there was some lull, and quite a number of judges and magistrates survived towards the end.
Yeah.
So the question that is there, and it will remain to scholars to really study this report, were the principles of natural justice, were the principles of fairness done to those ones who were thrown out. Are we likely to review what is happening today in the vetting board, the way now in the what you are seeing in the Chief Justice interviews? People are saying that if I'm appointed the Chief Justice, I will review those decisions. Are we likely to review these decisions if it is very clear that one Sharad Rao had a history of being really very hard on judges?
So, Commissioner, for a body that was charged with restoring mandate to the judiciary, to have conducted these interviews in private, the vetting, why are you not concerned that that in itself does not encourage much confidence? Because we're seeing what's happening with the JSC. People are able to follow its public participation, you're able to hear the questions, see the responses. But with you, we did not see that. Why did you find that an issue?
Thank you very much. First, let me come to the defense of the conduct of the chair and say this, that when it came to decisions, the decisions are made by all members of the board, and every member of the board, unless where you have recused yourself, you had to read and come up with an independent decision and a vote is taken. There are parameters that we are looking at. When you look at the standards that were established, especially for the Court of Appeal, when you look at it, this was the highest court, and the standard needed to be so high so that you can set an example to the others. That's why you see, as we go down the lower counter, we may have become lenient, and I understand that's where the weakness comes in. Kenyans have told us as much, that when you look at the Court of Appeal, we took away
lenient because
40%, 50% of the Court of Appeal went home. When you come to the High Court, the analysis is quite different. Why? When you look at the tools that we were using in Toma's vetting is concerned, there are certain things that we are looking at. For example, was a judge executive-minded? Was a judge the type who would be told by the executive what you do? When you come back to the High Court, you find judges who are able to reflect on what should be done. Two, madam, the vetting process gave judges and magistrates an option to have the vetting done in private or in public. And as a process,
why did you come up with just a requirement to have it in public?
Now, that is Parliament. Parliament, in its wisdom, main two ways that a judge would elect a vetting in private or in public. And let me tell you, only 3 judicial officers opted for that. Justice Martha Koome, Justice Maraga, and 1 magistrate who opted for a public vetting, and it was covered. That's why it was in private. But there was a requirement that once we arrive our decision, we must make it public. And that's why every time we are making it, we'll announce it, and we have that report which is already published in our website.
So you've mentioned something that's worrying, that at some point you became lenient.
Yes.
We'll talk about that. And also because also in your report, you talked about, again, this leniency in as far as the judicial officers were concerned, because you found 80% of the judicial officers were incompetent. But because you were afraid to throw all of them out, like you're talking about the numbers with the courts of appeal, then you maintain them. So then it's worrying, what still do we have? Do we have a big mess when it comes to judiciary? We'll talk about that when we return. You're watching The Last Word here on KTN News. Please stay with us.